Right, guys, this is episode 9 of Aussies Taking Over the NBA. This is where we're doing our wrap of Joe Ingles and Dante Exum of the Utah Jazz. And the pretty wonderful season that Ingles had, and the really good final run that Exum had until he got injured in the last series against the Rockets.
Yeah, coming back, a season that was pretty much, cut short by injuries. A lot of the start of that season, he missed separating his shoulder in preseason against the Phoenix Suns, which was,
Summer League.
Yeah, he was out for a long time, and I think he only played about 15 games at the end of the season.
Yeah, and very restricted minutes as well.
Mm.
Didn't have a lot of time. Fitness probably wasn't 100% there. But look, he came home strong. But we'll get into the old Jingling Joe. Slow-mo Joe.
Oh, you want to do Joe Ingles first?
Yeah, we'll do Joe Ingles first. Why not?
Jingling Joe Ingles.
Jingling. I like slow-mo Joe.
Small forward, left-handed shot, 6'8", 226 pounds. Unassuming man, 30 years of age. His fourth year in the NBA was a very, very successful one.
It was. He had one of the highest three-point percentages, which we'll get into, but he's really come into his own as an NBA player, and I think he's got a bit of a cult following now even. He's a cult status NBA player. And that's really off the fact that, he ran the offense. It was a second primary ball handler for much of the season, and, played very consistently well.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that, we really should look back on and see is that he wasn't in the finals. I think the Jazz were there because of his and Mitchell's contribution to the team to get them to the
Rudy
finals.
Gobert coming back from injury was massive. And that was massive in the way Ingles was able to influence, because, him being a knockdown shooter mainly as a base, he's a knockdown shooter. But what he did this season is he was able to move to small forward where Hayward left at the start of the season. He was able to move to small forward and play a lot more small forward and power forward and run 4-5 pick and roll with Gobert, which was really opened up his game because it allowed him to drive to the basket and allowed him to get a lot of assists sort of dishing off to Gobert, which has expanded his game and his confidence, which has been great for him.
He's played more minutes this season than he has in his whole career in a season. So he was really a starting player, really star and starting player all season, which is good to see. It's good for Australian basketball. We've just not got Simmons, we've got Ingles, we've got Exum, we've got Baines, we've got a whole raft of players. I'm pretty sure we're the highest international contingent in the NBA is the Aussies now, which is crazy for a nation of 25 million people and 6 primary ball codes. And a really, a fledgling league here of our own as well, which I think was what really drives these guys to get over there. It's kind of like what the EPL is in the 90s and noughties when we had the Australian soccer team. A lot of our
young
stars
contingent go over there.
Yeah, they go over early and they set up shop there and they work it out, and that was one of our strongest times in football was when that happened. But it's good to see them all over there. Let's get into old Jingling Joe. So, season. 204 3-pointers made this season.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely.
At 44%.
Yeah, just brilliant.
I don't think anyone had a higher percentage on that amount of free throws. Over 200.
3-point shots.
Yeah. 3.
I think, I had, I think it was Darren Collison, I think, had the best. Okay. But he only shot 130 or 140
I think
threes.
over 200, that's...
I think over 300 threes now is probably getting to the pinnacle of three-point shooting in the NBA. You're looking at like Klay Thompson. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, players like that where, he's in elite company making that many three-point shots and at a high percentage too,
And making them over dudes. He's not just, these aren't open shots. He is making these over guys.
Yeah.
And shooting from distance, not just beyond the perimeter, but, quite a fair bit, and creating runs and creating, good momentum in doing that. And I think him rising to the occasion is what's really kind of impressed me.
Well, I think it's in his personality. I mean, he's an unassuming type of player. You wouldn't look at him and think that he's a monster, which kind of plays into his ability to find the corner wide open. His ability to sort of get to the rim and run conventional pick and roll with Gobert. He's got a good eye for a pass. He can finish, around players. I mean, he's not going to finish through players because of, he doesn't have that kind of athleticism. But he's a very, very crafty finisher, which he's really added to his game, which I think has expanded his ability to score.
Found a bit of a jaw this season as well with him having a bit of a pick at Paul George and getting in people's faces. And found a bit of the angry bus driver.
Yeah, a bit of Aussie goon, which is pretty good. We've seen a little bit from Dellavedova.
He gets in everyone's faces.
So, that's just another aspect of his game. But, I mean, he's an unassuming player. You wouldn't look at him and expect him to, talk trash and, get in people's faces. So, if that's another string for his bow, then, that's good for him. I mean, they'll be looking at, probably keeping him on at power forward next year. Him and Gobert. Obviously, Hayward leaving has really opened a door for him this season, which was a big thing for him.
He stepped through it and well.
Yeah.
He just didn't fill the shoes. I think he excelled beyond the shoes.
Yeah, because he played half of his time. He played 30% of his game, 37% of his games as shooting guard last year. And I don't know if he has the all-around ability to play as a shooting guard in the NBA, to be able to create his shot off the dribble and to be able to get to the rim. I think he's better going to the rim at power forward than he is at shooting guard, which that really opened up his game. Plus, the Jazz drafted well with Mitchell. That's opened up his game. They've got Rubio as well running a pretty conventional pass-first type of offense, which has helped him. He
gets good delivery. He's
definitely.
He's been dishing well, but he's getting good delivery, which allows him to spot up shoot.
Yeah, get wide open.
Shoot. And the 4-5 pick and roll is definitely something good to see. He's getting to the rim a lot more.
Yeah.
And his field goal percentage has gone up way because of it. So it was interesting to watch all season. I enjoyed watching him in the playoffs. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, I did as well. And I think you wouldn't have expected him to sort of...
He's not a conventional athlete. Let's just say it there. He's not an athlete like James Harden or...
Yeah, it's not his game isn't based around...
It's not based around that. It's based around he's got a fantastic shot. He's a team player and can slot in any position when he needs to. He switches well off. And I thought he was going to defend quite poorly, and he did that first game against OKC, but then he came and pulled something out.
Yeah, he bounced back,
found a bit of himself and defended well because he's not a very quick lateral mover. He is slow-mo Joe.
Yeah.
But he's found something in himself. Maybe he can get, work on this postseason with, building his speed, his strength, and becoming more of that all-round player. But I think they've fitted him in really well into that position. And I think he'll do wonders for years to come. He will be a Jazz for
well he already holds that record. I mean, 204 threes was a record for the Jazz. So Randy Foye had the previous record. He had 178 threes. So that's a fair beating.
Yeah, definitely.
That's not he's not just equal. He's past that. No, I think if they can sort of get him the same looks and get him, as many looks. I think he could probably shoot maybe 50 or 60 more threes at 40% and then probably even surpass that next season, which would be impressive.
I think they'll go up next season. With Mitchell in the team and Rubio still that pass first point guard, I think the team will build. I mean, they started pretty poorly this season. I think they weren't gelling. It wasn't quite there yet, but they hit that run, and then it was all on from there.
Yeah,
and that's when they all started to excel and gel together as a team. So I think next season is only going to go on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
Ingles ranks 9th in ESPN's real plus minus and 6th in RPM wins added among the small forwards, which is pretty cool.
Which is pretty big, I mean, it just shows he's quite a high IQ player. And running offense as a secondary or off primary ball handler has he's got the IQ to be able to do that.
Yeah, he's an intelligent player, and you have to be. That's one of the things about not being an athlete. You have to find other ways to excel at your craft, and being that intelligent player is one of them. And that also that melding into the team mindset and with everyone in there is another. So,
and he's got the right mentality. I mean, he's a humble guy. I mean, he talked a little bit of trash, but at the same time.
Yeah, but you were just getting into everyone at OKC. We love a bit of trash talk at OKC.
Yeah, it's just chippy stuff that.
But they bit and they lost because of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
They threw that series away.
And it kind of showed in that Houston series that he tried it on with someone like Chris Paul and it didn't work at all.
It didn't work too well.
And, but I think, it says a lot about his mentality anyway. I mean, he's a competitor. He's quite humble and, a high IQ player, uses his tools well. I mean, I think he's only going to grow in the next couple of seasons. He
hasn't hit his peak yet. I think he's just starting to hit his strides now.
Even if he doesn't have that athletic ceiling to go to, you know what I mean? He doesn't have that, the athletic ceiling of an athletic player who's going to lose his traits down the end of his career.
Yeah.
He's always going to have the shot. He's always going to have the ability to sort of...
It's how Dirk Nowitzki and Ginobili have been playing for so long. Yeah, Nowitzki is not an athlete by any stretch of the means, but he's a fantastic shooter, and he's still playing at 40.
Yeah, so I think he's got about 3 or 4 more years of peak at his career, in his career of peak Joe Ingles, and Utah are in a really good position to sort of take advantage of that and have him play over the next 4 seasons at small forward and power forward.
He's not going anywhere. He's a fan favorite down there. Great news for Australia as well, I think, leading into the Tokyo Olympics, because I think for us, we really want that gold medal. I think, even when Ben Simmons was, asked by 60 Minutes, what do you want? He wants that gold medal.
Yeah.
And it's funny about that, you think at NBA titles will come. The thing he really wants is that gold medal in the Olympics and to take out the dream team. And, more players like, if, hitting their strides like Joe Ingles, we're probably missing one more good spot-up shooter or a catch-and-shoot player in the Boomers team. But it's just adding to the story. One stat I was surprised about for a guy that played power forward most of the season, 5.5 assists per game.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that was running that offense with Gobert and a lot of pick and roll with Gobert. He's a smart player. He's unassuming and he's very crafty. And I'd say a lot of that was running that pick and roll with Gobert, a lot of lobs, a lot of sort of, short roll passes to Gobert. But at the same time, in that OKC series, he showed that if he was run off the line, he could run into the lane and sort of find someone in the corner,
dish it out to them.
Yeah, which I think he's going to have to do. I think he's going to gain a lot more respect as a 3-point shooter and not be left open as much this season. So he might have to adapt his game just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
But he had a little bit of trouble creating his shot off the dribble in that Houston series. So, I mean, that's one aspect of his game, he might want to just tune up a little bit in the off-season.
Again, I think that Houston series for me was Rubio was out, and that's a massive loss to the cohesion of the team because he's not getting the dishes. Mitchell ran point well, but again, it's a lot to put on a rookie.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility for a young guy.
Mitchell is a much better get to the basket driver, spot up shooter, ISO. Dishes it out well, but I still think he's a better ISO player and better off, the dribble and driving to the basket and picking up the and one than, running an offense the ssame as Rubio, because Rubio opens up that dish to either Ingles or Mitchell, and it's hard to guard both effectively. But when you've only got 1 3-pointer, 1.3-point shooter who's not Mitchell. You could say Crowder is to some extent, but if he's having a bad night, he's having a bad night, whereas Ingles is pretty consistent. So that, I think, is why they struggled. I think that Exum also getting injured means that your backup point guard is out.
Yeah.
It's hard to run an offense with, 2 primary ball handlers out.
Yeah.
And they were never winning that series for my mind with that injury roster.
Yeah, well, they did really well to win that game too in Houston. And he played really well in that game. It was a fantastic game. I think he had 27 points and hit 7 from 9 from 3.
I think he hit his highest points 4 times this season.
Yeah.
Just kept getting better and better and better. And is having 20-plus games regularly now, which is unheard of in his career.
And he shot 52% from the corner. And 29% of his looks came from the corner. So that also, in the playoffs, losing Rubio as the initiating ball handler meant that he was standing in the corner wide open less, or standing at the wing wide open a lot less. I mean,
because he's got to stand at the point.
Yeah, he's got to either initiate or he's got to run he's got to run through the action just to get open before somebody else tries to create and get him open. Which was big for them to lose Rubio. And then he had 64% of his looks from beyond the arc, 16% at the rim. That was big too. I mean, using Gobert to run that pick and roll and as a scoring option obviously creates a lot more sort of wrinkles in an offense. If you got to respect him at the basket. I think that was up about 3 or 4% from last year.
Okay.
So it just showed that actually adding another string to your bow changes the way your team plays and gives you more respect as a player as well. Getting to the basket as well as, like passing those short passes to Gobert or the lobs to Gobert, which, makes him more useful going forward in their offense. So
I think he's found his right position in the team, and not as a shooting guard, but more as that kind of small forward, power forward. Yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to go on and talk some playoff stats?
Yeah, let's get the playoff stats out there, because this is, I think, where he really shined.
Yeah. So his best game was against OKC, I reckon, in game 3 and 4.
Yeah, 21 points game 3, 7 for 15 from the field on 46%. 4 assists and 1 steal. How does he get a steal?
I don't know. He's maybe a deflection.
How does he even reach down and then reach back up in time? It must have been a little quick pinch. He doesn't kind of look at me like he's a steal.
And then that was the game 3 at home, and then their game 4 at home. He had 20 points, 6 from 12 from the field, 5 from 11 from 3, and then 4 assists, a steal, and a block. He must have been blocking someone. He must have been blocking Raymond Felton, I think. Felton, maybe, or Westbrook. Yeah.
Maybe. Or George. He was on George the whole time.
And then that Houston Nuclear game in game 2.
Yeah. That was a good game.
And that was the record Aussie points total for a playoff game too. 27 points in a playoff game is a record for an Aussie.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's very cool.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So
it was an amazing game to watch. When he hit those threes in a row,
yeah,
Houston went down and that game was won. And the momentum was all their way. And you thought maybe this season would go on a little bit longer just in that moment.
Yeah.
But, Houston being the team that they are. And then we get into the kind of the boring mix of Houston Warriors.
And that series has kind of gone a similar way.
Oh, God. I called it. It'd be a 20-point blowout each way. It's the most boring series to watch. It's over by first quarter.
So against OKC in that series, he averaged 35.3 minutes a game. He had 14.2 points a game, 3.5 rebounds a game, 3.2 assists per game, and he shot 44% from the field and 46% from 3. So he shot quite well in that series.
He shot well all series. It's just a question of always who's around him, scoring and without a second primary ball handler, a secondary ball handler, it's hard to get the number of shots up there. But yeah, that Nuclear game was great to watch.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I really enjoyed watching that. I watched that live. And I think I was texting you, trying to get you on the blower to get that on and watch it. Yeah, it was a really good game.
I did. I turned it on and I watched the threes rain, and they were so good. And it was shooting over people 4 to 6 feet from beyond the 3-point arc. So it was fun to watch. And Mitchell had a blinder as well.
Yeah, he was fantastic as well. And against Houston, he averaged 34.2 minutes, 15 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, 3.6 assists per game, and he shot 50% from the field, but only 43% from three.
Only 43%.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, after that game, they pretty much did leave him open for the rest of the series, which, if you're playing against the Jazz, that's going to be your first port of call is to shut him down.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we'll go on to wrap it up.
What can he do next season, do you reckon?
Get a bit quicker.
Yeah, a little bit quicker. I mean,
do a bit of agility work off season. Like, you don't know what his injury load is like, and you don't know what his body holds up like. He's pretty lanky dude.
He maybe, I don't know if he needs to work on his conditioning, but maybe he needs to lose a bit of his weight. But he needs to not lose his weight. Keep his size. He
needs to pack on a bit of muscle. If he's going to stay slow, he needs to, and in the position he is, he needs to pack on about 5 to 10 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, convert. So stay the same weight, lower your body fat percentage, put on a bit of muscle, and get your agility work up. I think from a shooting perspective, he's got one of the best 3-point percentages in the game. Yep. He's got a good 4-5 pick and roll game with Gobert. So that all stays pretty solid. But again, teams will work him out.
Yeah.
They'll muscle him out of plays. He's got to get a bit stronger. That for me is his off season right there, is actually, that physical conditioning and getting a bit quicker laterally, especially to defend. I think that's is a big point, is the defense, not just the offense, but getting faster lateral movement.
Because teams, I think, will work him out and they'll go at him a little bit as well. He looked a little bit tired down the end of that Houston series. And
that's the conditioning. Like, this is the most minutes he's played in his NBA career for a whole 82 games. It's a long season. He's 30. He's not a spring chicken. But he gets his conditioning right off season. He's playing more minutes, the same amount of minutes next year. I think he'll have a much better year, which is good news because he had a stellar year this year.
Yeah. All right, you want to go on to Dante Exum?
Dante, well, this is a bittersweet kind of year.
Yeah.
Because he didn't play much, injured pre-season, bad shoulder injury, coming off a few years where he really hasn't been able to showcase what he's made of. I think that's the big thing out of it. Coming into his final year of his, not final year, but the final guaranteed year of his contract as a rookie. And obviously trying to work for that 4th year deal, so really having to showcase something.
Yep. I think he's pretty highly rated by Schneider. I think
Schneider rates him. I think he sees what his potential. I don't think he's a traditional point guard for my liking. I don't think his ball security is that good. And again, he hasn't played all season. He's bad shoulder. Did turn the ball over. His turnover to assist ratio is woeful for a point guard.
Yeah.
But as an aggressive driver, he's got a long reach. He's got a long wingspan as an aggressive driver, as a spot up shooter, and as a good defender. Like, he defended Harden. The stats were ridiculous. Like that game, Harden against the rest of the team, he was 13 of 15.
Yeah.
Against Exum, he was 1 of 10.
Yeah.
I mean, that just shows you that, he's got long arms, Harden step back, he can get in his face without fouling.
Yeah.
So that's good for my mind. That's such a big plus for him, because in a situation where your ball handling skills aren't the best because you just come off a very, very long layover.
And he also had that ACL injury too. I mean, that's another, so out of his 4 years, his only player had 2 years of NBA, really. I mean, 1 and a little bit, really, of proper NBA game time. So, I mean, he's only still 22, turning 23 at the end of the year. You
forget how young he was picked up. He wasn't even drafted. Oh, he was drafted, but he wasn't picked out of college. He was picked out of 3 games in an under-23s tournament for Australia. He did rip that tournament to shreds. End up losing, but he's still young. Like, he's got a lot of time left. His body's still growing and getting stronger. Same thing with Embiid. Same thing with Simmons. Like, Embiid got max extend off 1 year. Realistically, he hadn't played. They knew he was good. 2 seasons out, 36 games, 3rd season, and he got a max extend off 1 year of playing well.
Well, I think one little wrinkle in that Houston team is the fact that they picked up Donovan Mitchell. I think that'll allow Exum to sort of spread out and play more shooting guard minutes and more maybe even as a small forward.
Yeah.
And not rely on being that backup point guard, because I think his game will expand if he's playing at shooting guard in a second unit.
Yes.
I mean, he's got time on his side, and he'll go away, I think, and work on his jump shooting. But really, the jewel in his crown is his ability to get to the rim.
Yeah.
And Snyder's not a poor coach who's not going to take advantage of that, if you know what I mean. Like, he's not going to look at Exum and make him become something that he's not, I think.
No.
And having that ability to get to the rim is important if you're not being the backup point guard. Like, I mean, if Mitchell and Exum sort of share minutes at shooting guard, and then obviously Mitchell being the rookie coming in and playing point guard also before Exum, I think that's going to benefit his development in the long term.
Yeah, I think he's not a first team player as yet. I think he's a good backup minutes player. But he's one of those guys. If one of your main five go down, you'd be more than happy to slot him in for the minutes because he's fit. One thing, he's fit. He can run all day.
Yep.
He's coming off injury, and that's always an unknown. And his body hasn't held up too well over the 4 years.
Yeah.
It's a hard environment. Played very, very well throughout the playoffs. Unfortunately, gets his hamstring injured in game
that's not a lengthy injury, which is good for him.
No, it's only a couple of weeks, and everyone could do a hamstring, especially on hard court. It's a pretty common injury. But I'm hoping he gets a lot of summer league minutes over the off season. He works on his shooting and moves more into that shooting guard role and away from the point guard. I think small forward.
Yeah.
He's really long, good shot blocking options. Very, very long reach, 6'6", and laterally very quick. So promise. I think there's promise in his game. I think he'll get an extension on this contract, another year at the Jazz, and have a year to prove himself, and hopefully picked up, if not by the Jazz, but
by another team.
I don't think he's a $10 million man. He's probably between a $4 to $6 million player.
I think he's got a $6.5 million qualifying offer.
Yeah, okay.
And I would, with his injury history, if I was a different team, like if I was another team, I'd be looking at that injury history and thinking, maybe stay away from that. For any more than $6.5 million. But if I was the Jazz, I would be looking to keep him on.
Yes. Because
obviously he's been there for a length of time, knows the organisation. Obviously Ingles is there as well. He's another Aussie. I think the Jazz is in a good position to sort of secure his future. If he was to leave, I think he'd be looking at a bit less sort of security in the league, and I think
he'd bounce. He'd be a pawn that would be bounced around from team to team. He could be playing for 3 teams a season.
So I watched his exit interview, and he was saying that it's too far to sort of come back to Australia to train. So he's going to go to LA to train, in their summer. So, I'd be looking at working on that shot, that mid range, or maybe even a corner 3 or something like that. And then, continuing to sort of just stay healthy, work on that body.
Keep weight on, and, really use that ability to drive and use those long arms. I think that's where really he is. He's so long.
Yeah.
He's got a very, very long wingspan for 6'6", and that's going to really benefit because he's quick. Mitchell's 6'3"?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He's almost got the same speed as Mitchell. He doesn't have the ball handling presence that Mitchell does. But those kind of mini baby hooks coming off a fast dribble, if you can get those going all day, every day, he will be very, very good and very unstoppable because he will move around centers like no tomorrow.
Yeah, and he's got the length to sort of reach around defenders at the rim, which will be important, sort of instant offense off the bench. And I think Quinn Snyder's probably the right coach for him because he already knows how to use him and he's already used him quite well.
He's an impact player. He's definitely more of an impact player. Get him on hard minutes. He fouls a lot, which is, a notoriety of his impact play status. You get him on, he's going to be in your face, guard hard. He's a good defensive player. If he doesn't have defense, he doesn't have a really role in the NBA in my books.
That defense, I think, is pretty underrated.
Yeah, it saves him in a lot of respects and gets him to that fourth year with the Jazz.
I think how well he did on Harden maybe overrates his defense a little bit. But at the same time, he has the tools in his locker. He has the size and the quickness to sort of, work on his defense over the next few years and, defend the perimeter and maybe even be thrown at, some other guys in that Western Conference.
Yeah, he's still so young.
Yeah.
He's very, very young. I think we don't, we take that a little bit for granted. He's been in the NBA for nearly 4 years and he's only 22.
Yeah.
Well,
that's another aspect of it too, which, it's good for him that he's only 22. I mean, I don't think it's the right time for him to step out of that organization and, try and expand his career. I don't think it's that time yet.
Again, it's he's not in a career expanding. He's not really in a money situation as well. He's not really going to commit money or, get a team to commit money even if he takes a, min contract somewhere, a rotation contract, that would be good. My mind, he stays with the Jazz for a few more seasons. And,
I think I would. If I was him, I'd be taking that offer. And, they've got a pretty solid organisational structure going there and a bit of a good core. And I think he'd fit in as that extra shooting guard.
One thing would be interesting if he's played a fair bit with Ben Simmons. They're actually pretty good friends. So that would be an interesting dynamic to do because both quite long-armed, play together nationally.
I don't know if he really fits into that Philly offense, maybe sort of as a backup shooting guard.
They don't really have a strong basket driver. They don't. They have Embiid backing down. They've got Simmons who can, lob a small ball. Really got to work on that shot off season. They don't have someone who comes into the basket off speed. They don't have that option who can potentially come in on speed and fast dribble and hook around.
Yep.
And exploit the breaks.
Yep.
I think that's one thing in their backup rotation. I don't think they need that as their frontline roster. I think in their backup that's where they lack. Yeah. TJ McConnell for that is my mind, but again, he's a pass first point guard.
Yeah, he's a point guard mainly, and he doesn't have the size as well that someone like Exum has.
He shot 9 of 10 in that Boston series. He just doesn't miss because he's a very intelligent player.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Exum needs to increase his NBA IQ.
Yeah.
Study a bit more, get a bit more intelligent, still young, still makes a few rash plays here and there.
Yeah.
And the same could be said for Simmons in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. And they're both so young. I mean, obviously Simmons is younger than Exum, but I think for Exum, for where Exum's at 22, is probably at the level of a 22-year-old in the NBA that's sort of just coming out of college. Plus, he has the experience that he's already got in the NBA, which is important. So I don't know if he would. I don't think he all I've seen is he's sort of angling to stay with the Jazz.
Yeah.
So
he's not going to go anywhere.
I think it'd be important for him.
Get a full season under his belt.
Yeah.
And then, whatever's after that is after that. But hopefully coming back next year. Still great for Australia. Great for the Boomers.
Definitely. Yeah. And so he only played 14 games this season coming back from that injury. So he was looking for a little bit of fitness and a little bit of
restricted minutes as well,
shaking off the little bit of the rust towards the end of the season.
He had a 20-point game as well, coming off very, very quick scoring. He shot well that game. Poor 3-point shooter this season, but again, shoulder injury.
Yeah,
working that stuff out. It's hard to come back and be an effective shooter when you've had a shoulder injury.
And his limbs, he's got long limbs too. He doesn't really have the build of a natural shooter.
No,
he's more has the build of a slashing scorer who's able to reach around players and use his length. So I mean, you wouldn't design his role around shooting, and as he wouldn't go away and specifically work to make himself part of that roster as a shooter.
No.
Obviously he needs to improve his numbers and he needs to, develop maybe sort of a mid-range sort of wing jumper and then maybe a corner three or something like that. But I mean, I don't think he needs to, change his game to make that as as part of his game. I mean, it's just something he needs to work on that's in the periphery of his game. which is mainly getting to the basket and scoring.
Yeah.
Because he's quite a rangy athlete, and I don't think he doesn't have like a natural shooting stroke. When you watch him, you watch his shot, and it's not, it's not an exquisite stroke for someone who's gonna, really improve as a jump shooter. I don't think really that's gonna happen.
No, his primary role is getting to the rim. That's his primary role, and drawing the and one, just like Mitchell. But again, Mitchell is a freak and can shoot from everywhere.
And so he had 3.1 assists a game. So, fairly capable passer in sort of a short amount of time at the back end of the season. The other part of that is their offense is a lot more ball movement and player movement, which would suit sort of any player who wants to pass a ball in a system like that.
Same as Philly. Everyone's assists. Their assists on scoring are ridiculous, and everyone doles them up like no tomorrow.
But he definitely need to work on that shot.
Yeah, his ISO scoring ability needs to be definitely improved.
Yeah. So he was underdone going into the playoffs. He didn't have a great series against OKC. He struggled a little bit against the pace of Westbrook and the sort of craft of Paul George. He came off the bench. I don't think that was a more physical series, and
he's probably a little bit wary.
Yeah, coming off that injury, coming into that series. Coaching wise, I don't think you would throw him into a series like that. There was a lot of chip in that series.
It's the same reason why Fultz was kept on the bench for that Miami series. It's, these guys are coming off long-term injuries. It's a physical game. You don't want them to get re-injured. And definitely a better series against Houston.
Yeah, definitely.
Defensively. Harden's is that foul that he pushed the ball into Dante Exum's face and was called an offensive foul.
Yeah.
That for me
it wasn't. It was an offensive foul, but it was called a blocking
defensive
foul.
Blocking foul, even though the ball was smacked in his head.
Yeah. But that's Harden. I mean, Harden gets a lot of stuff like that. And you've just kind of got to... But what he did against Houston, I mean, he gave them an actual reliable option to defend Harden one-on-one, which was important for them. Obviously, they started to run out of numbers going down the stretch of that series. Exum himself got injured, Rubio was injured, and Houston started to sort of take flight.
And Gobert was pretty rubbish that whole series.
And he looked very tired, and Capella kind of ate him a little bit. So obviously there's a starting point there to go. There's some tools there. We should work on some of that. So I'd like to see him sort of defending single coverage this season and improve on that. Take that aspect of his game forward, because he's definitely got the body for it, and the IQ and the foot speed and the ability to get in front of people was, it was important in that Houston series. And I think it'll be important this season if he can, start to guard some of the league's better players one-on-one. I think it'll take his game forward a fair way. He averaged 9 minutes in that OKC series. He averaged 14 in the Houston series. He had averaged 3 points in the OKC series, and he averaged 8.5 points in the Houston series. I think that Houston was the better series for him.
Yeah, well, we talked about that game too, when him and Ingles really won that game. That slam towards the end cemented.
Oh, yeah, that was massive.
Yeah, that was massive. That kind of cemented their game and shows, and kind of put Dante Exum on that spotlight to say, yeah, this kid can actually play.
Yeah.
Before that, he was kind of, a bit of an unknown in this playoff season. But I think that cemented. It's just unfortunate he got injured. And
he blew that hammy. Yeah.
Blew the hammy out. All right, let's wrap it up.
So he's going into restricted free agency. I mean, we talked about that. I think Houston's the best. Utah's the best destination for him to land, to re-sign back in Utah, continue his growth with that organization. They've got a nice core to build around. With Mitchell and Rubio, sort of nailed on to run the point for them. I think that's going to shield him a little bit from an area where he doesn't really need to develop as a point guard. I think he'd be much better.
They've got probably a top 10 player for the next 10 years.
Yeah,
at that club, and that the franchise. Donovan Mitchell is and from my mind, he's a top 15 player this year. He goes to a top 10 player next year.
Yeah.
What he learns, and you want to be part of that organization when he's there, really becoming the player that he could be. So that with Ingles, Rubio is a good pass first point, and they've got a good center, good backup rotation. Alex Burks, Royce O'Neal, Crowder's a good spot up shooter.
Yeah, experience as well.
They've got a good team, and they'll gel, and I definitely think they'll be playoff contenders next season.
Yeah, I think if they have a nice healthy year, I think they can be back in the same spot next year. It will be very interesting. The other one is Favors, is a free agent. It's $11 million of cap space as well. I think he's going to re-sign, which that would actually limit the amount that Exum, I think his qualifying offer, that 6.6, I think he can sign for more if Favors ends up leaving. So I think it'll all depend on whether Favors leaves or not.
Yeah, but I don't really think money's an issue at this
I really
stage.
don't think
I think
that
he's
either.
just happy to field an offer.
Yeah, I really do as well. Well, at least I hope.
Yeah.
I hope for his sake that he just knuckles down and sees this as a good opportunity for himself. I mean, maybe he thinks he can get some more money elsewhere, and that's fair enough. Good luck to him. I hope he does as well. But for his own development, I think he's probably got a nice environment to stay there.
Stay a year in the system that you
Utah.
kind of came up through and keep it there.
So he's got to work on his shot and maybe his ability to handle the ball a little bit more.
But again, that's just confidence coming off a shoulder injury, I think. Yeah.
And stay healthy.
That's it.
That's one of the big ones.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, no worries.
Good wrap up. We're going to be back, obviously, wrapping up the full series of Cleveland and Boston.
Yeah,
we're also going to do a pretty in-depth Ben Simmons year wrap that will be really looking at everything about his season in quite a lot of depth. So if you want to tune in for that, that would be good. And we're also toying with the idea of doing a bit of a Andrew Bogut tribute.
Yeah.
First all-round pick, Australia's first all-round pick for the NBA, and obviously coming home back to the Kings and ending his NBA career. It would be good to kind of wrap it up and talk about the
13 years, I think it was,
in the NBA,
and a championship.
And a championship with Golden State. So things to come. But and we'll also cover the draft.
Yeah, hopefully some more Aussies will get into that. So hopefully
some
we can
more
get
declare
a bit more
little bit longer. But all right. Peace out.
Take it easy, peeps.